The Impostor. The office was buzzing with activity, the low murmur of conversations blending with the occasional clack of keyboards. It was another quiet morning, the kind that made you think everything was normal, everything was under control. But then again, nothing was ever truly normal in my line of work. I'd spent years learning the ins and outs of people, their weaknesses, their fears, and most importantly, their trust. It had started small, a few harmless cons here and there, just testing the waters. But the real game, the one I was playing now, was far more intricate, and it all started with one simple decision. I had invested in a highway patrolman's uniform. The day had gone as expected. The witness was a mess, their hands shaking, their eyes wide with the shock of it all. They had seen something they couldn't quite understand, and they were desperate to make sense of it. But the moment I walked in, dressed head to toe in the uniform, the whole room shifted. The police officers straightened up, their eyes glancing at me with that familiar respect. They assumed I was one of them, and that was exactly what I wanted. "Yes, officer, I can describe the assailant to a sketch artist," the witness had said, voice wavering, their eyes darting to me. They didn't know me, of course. They didn't recognize the face beneath the badge. All they knew was that I had walked in like I belonged. And I did. I was one of them now. I nodded, a reassuring smile plastered on my face, before I led the witness away from the station. They followed meekly, still unsure but trusting, too wrapped up in the trauma of what had happened to question my authority. As we stepped outside, I could feel the rush of adrenaline building inside me, but I kept my expression neutral. The plan was simple, but it would take finesse. The sketch artist would be waiting, just as I had arranged. The witness would describe a figure they thought they had seen, a person whose face they could barely remember through the fog of their fear. But I would be the one pulling the strings. Once we were alone, I stopped and turned to face them, keeping a polite distance. "If you wouldn't mind, could you tell me everything you saw again? Just from the beginning?" They nodded, shaking off the confusion that had clouded their mind. As they started speaking, I tuned out their words, letting them flow through me. What mattered was the sketch. The witness would describe a tall man with dark hair, a sharp jawline, wearing a black jacket. Someone who looked just enough like me to make the description convincing. My smile grew wider as I thought about it. The sketch artist would have a field day. The entire investigation would be misdirected. The wrong person would be caught, and I'd be one step closer to the money. The witness finished their description, their voice faltering as they spoke the last details. "He had a scar here," they said, pointing to their cheek, "and his eyes, there was something unsettling about them." I made a mental note. I had seen the scar too. It was the mark of someone who had lived through violence, someone who had learned to survive by any means necessary. It was exactly what the police were expecting to hear. The witness, looking a little more composed now, nodded as if satisfied. I gave them a reassuring pat on the back. "Thank you. You've done a great job." Then, without missing a beat, I glanced around, making sure the coast was clear. I waved over a car parked on the side of the road, the one I had arranged to pick me up. As the door opened, I turned to the witness, my smile now a little more sinister. "I'll make sure your statement gets to the right people. Don't worry, the assailant will be caught." They nodded, unsure, but I could see the confusion in their eyes, the realization creeping in that something wasn't quite right. They had no idea how badly they had been played, and they never would. The car drove off and I settled into the back seat, letting out a deep breath as the weight of my success settled over me. The badge, the uniform, the respect, it had all worked. Everything had fallen into place just as I had planned. I glanced at the rearview mirror, checking my reflection one last time before I wiped the grin off my face. The game wasn't over yet, but I had already won. All that was left was the payout.